I remember that Final Four for a lot of reasons. One, San Antonio is my absolute favorite Final Four city. Wish I was going this time, but I'm not. Hurricanes will keep me here. But that Final Four was awesome for its talent level. This Duke team almost takes up that talent level. You wrote on Saturday night after the Blue Devils completely suffocated Alabama that the knockout punch for this team wasn't a basket, wasn't a dunk, it was a charge. It's an offensive foul. Charge might not be the right word, but offensive foul committed by Mark Sears when Tyrese Proctor just shut him down. And that's really, I think, the forgotten thing about this Duke team is that they're as good as defensively as anybody.
Not anybody. Not the team they're playing.
Right.
They're excellent defensively. Duke is terrific defensively. Houston is next level defensively.
Right.
I mean, so good that it's to the level of why are they so good? Like, how do they do what they do? Because it's not like they've got I don't know who would be like Dikembe Mutombo back there.
Right.
When you saw the lineups, I was paying attention to this when they show the lineups, all 5 mug shots, height, weight, et cetera, class.
Yeah.
When you saw it and you said, okay, well, Tennessee's starting a 6'11 center and a 6'9 power forward, and Houston's 6'8, 6'8. That ought to help Tennessee, right? Oh, man, couldn't have mattered less.
Right.
I mean, it might as well have been 6'1". If they weren't throwing them the ball, they weren't trying to get the ball inside, they probably wouldn't have done much good with it if they did. Houston's defense is phenomenal, and that's what makes Saturday a really interesting challenge for the Blue Devils. If they're not going to be as proficient offensively as they were against Alabama, because Alabama does not defend at an elite level.
No.
And honestly, Alabama played about as good a defense as they can to bother Coop into a 6-16, something like that. They did a good job relative to what they ordinarily do. But Duke is going to have to be at their absolute best offensively to be somewhat less than ordinary. And somewhat less than ordinary offensively can win this game, will win this game if they do their customary defensive job, because Houston is not a great offensive team. I'm not, their Ken Pom numbers are good.
Yep.
But okay, so were Tennessee's yesterday going into the regional final, and they scored 15 first half points. So
right.
Houston. One of the things I noticed about Houston, and I wrote about this in my article that's up on my page on.
You rank the Final Four teams 1 through 4.
I did that, but I also wrote about Houston and their defense, and they played Texas Tech on the road in a Big 12 game, and they scored like their 46th point with about 16 minutes left in the second half, and then they scored another bucket about 3 minutes later, and then they didn't score again until like the 9th minute. So they go from 44 to 48 points, takes them 7 minutes to do that. And you think, okay, well, the other team must have made a run. No, I think they maybe scored 2 points. That's what they do.
Right.
They break down offensively because they're not elite, but they know that when they hit those spots that they can do the same to you. And that's what Duke has to fight through on Saturday.
Mike DeCourcy of the Sporting News is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show at TSN. Mike, when I look at this Duke team, and it's funny, Cooper Flagg had I had texted you that I thought Duke played a B- offensive game and an A+ defensive game. And I don't know that Duke played a B- offensive game. They were good offensively. It just was Cooper wasn't good. And this is where I think Duke has an advantage over every other team, even at this Final Four, is that they've got options on top of options on top of options. So if they can't facilitate through Flagg, they can facilitate through Con Knippel. They can facilitate through Tyrese Proctor. They've got spot-up shooting everywhere. That there are just more ways for them to beat you, and they can also, like if Houston is offensively challenged, and I agree, they can also shut you down. So they might not need to get more than 70 points to win this game.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying, is that I don't think Duke has to beat Duke offensively to win this game, but they have to beat Duke defensively. They have to make Houston's typically difficult time scoring the basketball as difficult or more difficult than it usually is. And if they do that, I think that their offense will generate, and they'll find a way to generate enough points to make it work, whatever that might be. I think you saw Tennessee did not shoot the basketball well at all from 3-point range. Part of that was because they didn't do a good enough job clearing space for themselves to get open looks. And so when they did get what looked like open shots, they were thinking they weren't. I did that when I was covering Huggins and Kenyon Martin days. Every team would come in and say, well, we just missed shots. Well, no, you didn't just miss shots. You were so worried about that dude coming over to block your shot that you rushed your shot and you missed it. Like, I can't tell you how many coaches used to come in and say, we had open shots, we just missed. Well, yeah, every single guy said that because you didn't think you were open. You were thinking about who was coming to guard you. And that's what happens with Houston. So you have to create those openings through some penetration. They got to get the ball deep some. Tennessee was not able to do that at all. The advantage that Duke has over Tennessee, Zakai Ziegler gets deep. The Houston guys are looking around. This guy's 5'10", 5'11", whatever. Like, we're not worried about that. We'll take that down. Sion is bigger, stronger. If he gets deep, he's got more options.
Yep.
So and he's got more kick out options as well. If Lanier or Gainey is not on the open side, then they don't have really anybody to kick it out to. Duke can put Knipple there, Proctor there, Evans there. And so they have to worry about a lot of different guys. And they could put Coop there as well. So they have so many guys. They should be able to make this work. That's why I'm picked them at the beginning of the tournament, because the wealth of talent they have is exceptional. And the wealth and all of those players have great competitive toughness. Like, there's not a guy out there who's not made big shots in this tournament that's on their team, that's in their rotation. Everyone has taken his turn making some big shots.
Yeah, against Arizona, Sion James and Mason Gillis both hit big corner threes during Arizona's run. Flagg obviously hit tons of big shots in that game, but it just speaks to, Tyrese Proctor didn't have his fastball offensively in the game against Arizona. It didn't matter. Like, Duke still won by whatever the final score was, 22 or something. And I thought Alabama played a good game for the most part against Duke, and that ended up being a 20-point game. Yeah, Duke's defense, that was the lowest efficiency for Alabama. I think they might have had one lower efficient game all year, but and it was Duke's fifth best defensive game because they were better defensively against Seattle and Wofford. Although one of the games that was better was the game at Arizona, when Arizona was still kind of going through some early season things. I think if Duke loses this game, it's because Houston bullied them on the offensive glass. Arizona was good at on the offensive boards, especially early in the game against Duke on Thursday night. I think that's where Duke can be had, even though they have been really good on the defensive boards. To me, that's the matchup that Houston can exploit.
That's where Malik Brown might make a difference.
If he can play,
because playing Malik in this game, you give up the size advantage that you have, but you don't give up. You don't get overmatched size wise if you play Malik against Houston, because they are not a tall team. So if you put him in because you don't feel you're getting great rebounding out of Gongba or out of Malawach, then you can put Malik in and you can and he can show whether or not he can do the job. So you have another option there that doesn't change your effectiveness relative to the opposition. And then I think Cooper Flagg has to have a high level rebounding game. And he has so many other things he has to do in a typical game that often his great gift for rebounding gets overlooked.
Yeah.
But when he's had to do it, and the Auburn game that I attended was an example of that, he's an elite rebounder.
Yep.
He's often not in position because of where he's stationed on the offense to get offensive rebounds. But defensively, he can get in there and get those defensive rebounds that Tennessee was not able to gather on Sunday.
I have about a minute and a half left before we have to break. Mike DeCourcy of the Sporting News. I want to ask you a question outside of the Final Four. As somebody who went to the University of Maryland like I did, and wonders why that program hasn't built on what Gary Williams. Now, Gary Williams is also part of the problem here because Gary Williams didn't really build on what Gary Williams built. But why is that program, with all of the resources of the Big Ten, why is that program apparently such a mess?
Well, I can't speak much to the administration level of it, but the fact that
they have no AD right now.
Well, yeah, they don't now, but why don't they have an AD? I mean, so I don't know that they've done a great job of hiring to that position. And so that leads to problems. And then the secondary thing is that they hired Mark Turgeon at a time when they could have hired Sean Miller.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they made I know the story of Sean Miller's hire.
Yeah.
And I don't remember who the AD was at the time.
Kevin Anderson.
Yeah, but it was totally botched.
Yeah.
And Sean could have completely redirected the future of Maryland basketball because he's a tremendous coach, and he wouldn't have been if they had moved back to Maryland at the time, that he wouldn't have ever been motivated to leave. Because what Maryland can be, and he would have made it that. Yep. So they missed that. I never liked Turge as a hire for that job because I didn't think he had the personality for it. He's a quiet guy, not super interactive, and I think there are places where you can do that, and Wichita State's probably one of them. But I don't think you can do that at Maryland. You've got to be more engaging and engaged. And so it didn't really work. And then they hired Kevin, and that's not Kevin's greatest strength either. I remember being on.
I hate to do this because I know this is going to be gold, but the network's going to yell at us and kick us off the air. But I think you're right. I think that it spiraled out of control. When out of control is not the right word, when they missed on Sean Miller. Everything has been just kind of mediocre. I also don't think it helps that they don't have a rival. Nobody wants to play Maryland in the Big Ten. Mike DeCourcy of the Sporting News at TSN Mike. Enjoy San Antonio. I'll live vicariously through you. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Adam.
Take care.